guys, welcome to The Jig Is Up. My name is Darcy, and before we kick in tonight's patron-only episode, I wanted to tell you a little bit about this episode. But it is supposed to be for our patrons only. However, tonight we're offering it free to everybody. Number one, I think the message that we have in this episode needs to be heard by many people. But also, we want to offer you this to show you the kind of content you'll get on our Patreon page. And if you haven't already gone there, go to patreon.com/thejigisup, and the link will be in the description of the show. And there you will find you can pledge to gain access to exclusive content, plus you'll get rewards if you pledge. So for example, for the $10 pledge per month, this month we will be planting a tree in honor of your pledge. Plus you gain exclusive content, and the most important part is you get a shout out on the show, right? So check those things out on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/thejigisup, and find us there. We also post all of our free episodes there, so you'll be able to get it in one-stop shopping. Tonight's episode, we have Ann Pruden, who is a member of a Métis community here in Alberta, and she is going to speak to the frustration she feels towards the lack of accountability and transparency in her region. And I think this is something that we all can really kind of, empathize with. We can all kind of understand what she's talking about and how she feels, because I think we've all experienced that frustration. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode as much as I did, and check us out on Patreon. And for now, here we go, Ann Pruden. All right, welcome to the show, and I'd like to welcome Ann Pruden. And Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yes, and actually this is our second attempt at this. First time we had some technical issues, so welcome back, I guess. So let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and I understand that there's some issues in Region 1, so we'll get right into it.
Well, I'm a grassroots Métis born and raised in Lac La Biche, pretty much educated in Lac La Biche, going for Bachelor of Education, pretty much raising children, living the pretty busy life, and just staying busy and trying to stay up with the politics in Region 1. And apparently, we have issues. We have huge issues in regards to human rights violations, and the biggest one is human rights violations not providing goods and services and accommodations to the facility, basically stating that we haven't had a meeting since 2015 with our collectives, and as we all know, this community, this region, basically went and built another municipality. So the issues is how do you serve the collectives if you can't provide the needs and goods and services?
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the human rights aspect of that. So are they denying Métis people services through their local Métis up there?
Well, basically what it is okay. The region has a collective of 2,500 Métis.
Okay.
So what happens is the region is to serve the 2,500 Métis. But what's been happening is the region hasn't been having meetings in Lac La Biche. So what they've been doing is having these regional meetings in Fort McMurray, and they've been hosting them mostly in Fort McMurray, Fort Mackay, and the northern upper north areas. And okay. But the collectives, let's just say the locals that amount to the collectives that are up there doesn't amount to the collectives that are here in the region. So say for instance there's 2,500 Métis collectively in this region, and they only provide goods and services to 435 that are in the locals. And that's an issue because you're not serving the 2,500. So what are our collectives what are they there for? And what are our Métis there for if you can't even serve our human rights? You can there. The thing is, Métis Region 1 is more concerned about my Facebook posts rather than serving human rights. So we have an issue there.
Well, yeah, you actually got some letters from lawyers threatening you with defamation and all sorts of things for for
Oh,
Facebook posts. And
I'm supposedly the most vicious Métis in Lac La Biche. Nope, but I'm not going to say that I'm the vicious. I'm one of the Métis that want human rights served in the region and for all 2,500 of us. Fairness across the board. You can't just serve your cousins because you know what? Family first is actually a human right violation. You can't just serve your family when there's 2,500 of us.
now,
So that's the reason why we're making noise is because there's a lot of us that don't get what we need. Like I applied for funding, but apparently this is what I was told that our applications were thrown in the garbage for executive secretary of the region. So she got the fourth. Our applications were thrown in the garbage so the daughter could receive the scholarships and the funds, and then the president doubled up on them, and then our applications were thrown in the garbage. So
wow.
obviously there's issues, and I had and this was brought up to me by one of the vice president, and he said he can also validate that as well.
Yeah. Now, wow. So is it essentially they're focusing on? Is it like an economic reason? Like they're focusing up in Fort McMurray because that's where industry is and that's where the big.
That's basically how it works. Is okay. So what happens is industry invite indigenous to our table to their tables, right?
Yeah.
And they basically tell us what is available to us as resources and different types of programs and stuff like this. Well, what they've been doing is like Fort Mac. They haven't been inviting the remainder of the collectives. They went and created these different entities, like different entities, and we're not even sure if these entities are constitutionally correct because we're aware that some of them are First Nation. And speaking of First Nation, we can't use First Nation or non-Indigenous for our collectives because that would be considered fraud.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So they're using. I guess are they like setting up separate corporations or are they setting up?
They're setting up associations. I guess another association like
Oh, okay.
Athabasca Métis. They're setting up different boards and committees. However, what happened here is there's a protocol, there's a certain framework for the Métis, and what they did was they went above provincial's head with the ministers and told the ministers that they are the collective of the region. So I guess apparently at the regional meeting that they had last week, they were given letters by Audrey Patra, and I'm not too sure exactly what was stated on those letters, but they were told that they cannot go above provincial's head and speak to the minister and get money, and that they kind of overrode the province, the provincial collectives. So there's issues there when it comes to Fort McKay meeting with the government and not proper protocols because all the other regions in the province have signed protocols except for Region 1, and we'd like to know why. And that's something, I guess, when Daniel got suspended, he was suspended because he told apparently Fort McKay, Lakeland Local 1909, anybody that's related to the president or is affiliated to the president that's of the upper crust, stated that Daniel they didn't agree with Daniel citing the protocols. So Daniel abstained against that. Another local president abstained against that. So they pushed him out. They only wanted the locals that are going to agree with them and give them what they want. And as for anybody that abstained, well, they pushed them out. They even pushed out the vice president as well.
So now we're talking. So you have your Métis local organizations, and then Region 1 is trying to kind of. It seems like they're trying to break away from the Métis Nation and do their own thing.
Well, basically, they're trying exactly what they're doing is they use their regional collectives all this time for the for the term of I guess you could say since the last election. They pretty much created, sustained, and developed all these different entities. But the question is, how is it that none of the money has made it to our regional table for our collectives, and why are we told that we're broke?
Right.
But yet these guys are receiving millions of dollars for whose collectives, and are these collective status, and are they constitutionally correct Métis, and how many of these locals are actually, we'd like to know who are these members on these locals, and if their status. Those are some of the questions that we'd like to ask. And I definitely would encourage Audrey Patra to run the membership and provincial memberships names before elections to find out who might have chosen First Nations during the time from the last election to today, because then those names will be removed, because we can't have First Nations on our Métis nation. And all due respect to First Nations, I do respect them, but us Métis can't go to a band meeting and vote and sit on boards. You know what? Band chiefs and band members know who's who, and they'll tell you to leave, and they'll do it nicely and respectfully. They'll even feed you after the meeting is done. But there's protocols, there's traditional protocols that have to be abided, and Métis Nation doesn't abide those.
Yeah. Now, is this like, so region 1, there's kind of a portion of it that seems like it wants to break away, and then it seems like from your side, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like from your side, you guys want to stay with the Métis Nation and stay kind of connected that way, and you're trying to figure out where all this money has gone over the last few years to the Region 1. Is that an accurate statement?
What we want is we want to see the financial statements from 2010 to 2018. We want to see exactly where all the money has gone, and pinpoint, like, check numbers, transactions to accounts, showing us exactly where our regional core funding went to, and exactly what these locals gained, what they used, I would like to see how much they got, because they don't come to Lac La Biche. We haven't had a meeting since 2015, and the last time we had a meeting, the president referred to us as the Gong Show.
Wow. So now
no. You know what? I wasn't even involved in those meetings prior, but we've had issues since 2012, 2014. Ballot boxes were broken for elections. The ballot box didn't make it back to the provincial office till after the weekend, and the seal was broken. And I honestly believe Willie Landstrom should have been the president for this term. And I do believe ballot boxes were stuffed.
So now,
because there was issues right from elections.
Is this a matter of well, it sounds to me like there's a lot of issues here. There's a lack of transparency. There's a lack of accountability. But there's also
That's exactly my point. We want a accountability and then transparency movement. We would like to have a regional meeting where they show us exactly where they spent the collective's money, because obviously we're not getting it. So now, what are these?
Sorry to interrupt.
So what are they for? Sorry.
Is that in the bylaws? Like, is an audited annual financial statement to the members? Is that in the bylaws, kind of thing?
Yes, we're supposed to be shown these things every year. Like, we go through the budget.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they go through the budget in 2 hours after a year of spending. They don't answer our questions. They pretty much do it in I guess you could say in a formal way, but it doesn't pinpoint where money was spent. It just shows lump sums. It's not broken up in quarterlies. It doesn't specify the first quarterly, what was that spent on. Yeah. And the questions I'd like to ask is, how in the heck did Diane Scoville get a $20,000 raise? How did they get $20,000 raise? Nobody gets a $20,000 raise. Not even the Prime Minister gets prime. Well, you know what? I hate to say that. He's been getting it pretty good. He's been taking collectives, so I can't say anything about Mr. Trudeau.
Well, and that is, it seems to be a growing concern everywhere, is that, they put out these financials, and it doesn't seem to matter which local or region or organization it is, there just seems to be a lack of accountability. So, I've noticed in a lot of it.
This is the thing. We are denied goods and services, accommodations to facility. We haven't had a meeting in Lac La Biche since 2015. So we don't know what was going on. Audrey Patra came down here at the Bolt Center for harvesting, and then we had another meeting before that. And when we went to this meeting, We didn't have a clue what was going to be told. We haven't seen our president since 2015. That was the first time we seen her. She put on this big facade about this speech, but as soon as it was time, like she ate and then she left. So Audrey, Madam President, had to sit there with the regional collectives and ask and answer our questions. And she pretty much asked us. She goes, "How come you guys aren't informed about this?" And I said, "You know what, Madam President, if you didn't come down here and address us and inform us, we wouldn't have known what was going on in our province."
Wow. So what is to stop you guys from forming your own local? Is there anything to stop that, or can you get out of the control of the Region 1 and can you break up Region 1? Is there a way to do that? I don't know.
No, I don't think I'd want to dismantle or break up or even try to modify our regional office, because right now I know there's a new governance that's coming in and they're wanting Métis Constitution, and there's money coming in for housing, healthcare, education. They're talking about families keeping trap lines, housing. Housing is an issue in Lac La Biche and in Conklin.
Yeah.
There's rising issues of missing and murdered women, children that are basically there's a lot of racial profiling as well in Lac La Biche. Oppression in regards to jobs. Immigrants are picked before the Métis. We're kind of like this is the thing. We are the Canadians, but yet we're picked last. We're not served. Our collectives aren't served even by our president or our locals. So we have issues, and we complain to Audrey and we address them with her, but nothing is being said. And it's kind of kept hush hush, and our questions are not being answered. So it's kind of like this. We have to search for our own, I guess you could say, information based on who's at these meetings, who can tell us what, and if whoever's there. And the one person that pretty much informs us is one local, and she pretty much is the one that was ousted by Fort McKay, Conklin, Lakeland Local, and all these other places. Like they had a meeting here on April 16th in Fort McKay. It went from Fort McMurray to Fort McKay.
Yeah.
None of our members got to attend. And I guess when these local presidents attended, they weren't even allowed to sit at the table.
Oh, wow.
Daniel wasn't even allowed to sit at the table.
Wow. So is it is there just a lot of the same people on local boards and region, and is it a lot of the same people running these boards? So
yes,
that's why.
Yes, it's the same ones. It's all Diane's daughter has a Lakeland Local 1909. She supposedly has 82 members, but I actually talked to one of the members, and he said he wants to jump ship. He said because he wasn't paid. And he has issues. He had issues with that, and he said he didn't like the fact that he was left out of the collective. And he said he doesn't want to be a part of that anymore. He said because only certain members get to go to these meetings, and they get paid to go to these meetings, and a lot of us don't.
Yeah.
So there's issues there as well. There's so many human rights violations. What I did was I filed a human rights complaint against the entire region, and based on not serving the goods and services, accommodations, and facility, because a 77-year-old elder went to I think it was March 2nd, he went to the office, and he was raising his concerns, and the president called the cops on him and had him removed.
Wow. So that was my next question. Was I've heard that people are getting turned away at the office, or they're not even I'm
not allowed at the office. I'm not allowed to go to the office at all.
So what did they say if you go to the office and open the door? Would they call the police too?
They won't serve me. It's pretty much I am probably the loudest member in Lac La Biche. I've been fighting these guys. I've been protesting since 2014. When Audrey came to Conklin, I pretty much set up everything what industry, because you can go on Google and you can find out exactly what these guys have been given.
Yeah.
You just have to put Lakeland Local, Métis Nation. The executive names come up, and it shows all the different things that they gained over these years. However, it's not being brought to the members. So we're kept out of the loop. We're kept out of the goods and services from the facility. And if we speak out and speak up, they send these letters from these lawyers. And I'm like, so basically what they're saying is, we'll deny you goods and services, we'll deny you human rights, we'll deny you your constitutional rights, but yet we'll bully you with lawyers and try to silence you to so this way you can't inform the people about what's really going on, or under relying the issues like housing. There's women in Conklin that are squatting on federal land,
Yeah.
and they have no running water. They still have slop pails.
Yes. No heat. No nothing.
No nothing. But they covered it up and they say there's no issues here.
Well,
There's
now,
children here that are going. There's children here that are being murdered. There's drugs. There's issues. We're being neglected, but nobody seems to care. And as soon as I post on my Facebook post, they're targeting me. And this is the funny thing. They deny me the goods and services and my human rights. Why are they so concerned about my posts
yeah.
on Facebook?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So when you say goods and services, what kind of services are they, I guess, are they denying you and others? Like, is it the housing? Is it things like that?
Everything that we're entitled to in Region 1 as a collective, our funding, our membership, the community access, our home, our regional office is supposed to be our home. How is it how can we go home when we're rejected?
Yeah.
They disassociate their own collectives.
I seen quite a bit of that up in when I did visit Conklin, and just I was there. I've been there a few times to talk to people and be at a few meetings, and it's very clear that there's almost like a preferred group and a non-preferred group of Métis.
You know what I call that? Cousin policy, because it's only relatives. Cushion this, cushion that, cushion. And all I gotta say is that violates human rights. And this is the bigger picture here. Region 1 and all these little locals and all these little presidents, they only serve their family. They don't serve the rest of us. So that's the bigger issue. Family first is a human right violation. Why is Audrey allowing that to happen in each of these locals?
Well, and that's
and
a
that
good point,
has to
yeah.
be addressed. And that has to be addressed as well. How do you take responsibility? You address those issues. And I'm not saying nothing negative about Madam President. I'm grateful for all the things that she's done in Métis Region 1, and I'm grateful that she's making these guys take responsibility for the things that they're doing up in Fort McMurray, because what they basically did was they go against our bylaws. They're meeting with ministers, going against the framework and conducting business for own self-interest. And I do have to say this, there's 2 locals in this region that are not legit and shouldn't be going against a provincial body, and that's Fort McKay. And we need to get those books, because in 2000, and I think it was 2002 to 2012, he was disbanded from the local, and he was never reinstated. So, and neither was Anzac.
Wow.
There's some issues here, and this is the thing. Why isn't our regional president? Why is our regional president allowing this, and why is she allowing First Nations on these locals?
Yeah, and that was kind of a lot of the same stories I was getting out of Conklin, was that simply because there's the same 7 people or 10 people that fill
and
up
you know what they're
every
doing,
board.
and they go to they create these little committees, these little boards, these little associations, and it's just the same ones. And they go and they use these associations for industry's money. The thing that bothers me the most is, okay, sure, I'm happy that they got the Métis land and the historic. I'm all for that. You know what? I would love to see Métis have more land, and I'm never going to say nothing negative about that, because we do need that. And I like the way that was done. However, I question where the money came from. I do, because locals don't make that much money. At 20,000 max, I know the president makes maybe 85,000. The vice makes 75,000. And I know that if we, even if we made that amount of money, we couldn't get a loan for $1.6 million.
Yeah. No, absolutely not.
It doesn't add up. And
Well,
that's what I question.
and now,
Where did the money come from? Did it come from industry? And these guys kept it all hush hush all these years and made it, and they happened to do this just before elections. But I'd like to know is, if there's any way that she can dig into finding out where that money came from and do a forensic audit. And I hate to say this, but she's got to hold her own staff accountable and have them be transparent as well, because they're setting an example for the next leaders. And I don't want to exemplify that type of leadership. I want to represent and serve the collective, because I'm also running too.
yeah. Well, I think a lot of it. I think if you were to, I don't know if they can look into it, because I think it'll probably be buried in private industry and private corporations, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But there seems to be that general lack of transparency, though, throughout all regions. I mean, I live down in Region 3, and I've heard, I'm not involved directly, but I've heard from several people that there's, nobody seems to know where money is spent, or there's just a lack of transparency there as well. Maybe not to the degree that you guys are experiencing up there, but that seems to be a very common theme. When you talk to people from other locals, do you kind of run into that same issue?
Well, I've talked to a few people, but we're all like this. We don't know what's going on. We have no clue. We're not informed. Goods and services are not delivered in our region. So how would we know?
Yeah.
Unless we go and talk to Audrey and she informs us. But Madam President is so busy, like it's hard for her to come running for one single collective. So what we've been doing is I've been informing her and Sonia as things been happening, because I don't want to be that type of I want to be a team member, and I want to play for the Métis Nation of Alberta, because we are the largest collective of Alberta.
Yes. Does the Métis Nation of Alberta itself, doesn't it have a way to deal with these conflicts? Doesn't it have a set of procedures or a way that you can go and do that?
Basically, we don't have a Métis. We can't file complaints in the Métis Nation of Alberta either, because that was dismantled and ceased in 2005. They're supposedly revamping or modifying this Métis Judiciary Council. So that's where this all stemmed from. It's because I couldn't complain to them, and I had complaints there in 2015, but they didn't go anywhere. They've been sitting there. So I thought to myself, okay, if I can't complain to my Métis Regional Judiciary Council, who do I go to? So I went to the Human Rights. They basically told me how I was violated and the Constitution and the sections where I was violated, and they showed me how. So basically what I've been doing is trying to teach our Métis that we do have human rights, and these are the provisions that we're protected under in Section 35, which is supposed to be a part of our constitutional rights as a Métis of Canada.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now with no, I guess that's kind of another problem, right? Is like there's no judiciary is what they called it. So then there really is no mechanism to deal with these kinds of issues. I mean, Audrey is one person, but realistically, there are rules in place, and she can't just arbitrarily make decisions, correct?
Exactly. Okay, another thing is, what are our bylaws for? Nobody's following them. Nobody is abiding to the bylaws. But to me, it's like these new entities created their own bylaws, and we have to go based on their entity. I'm sorry, but for me, I'm a Métis, and there is bylaws, and these are the provisions that we are supposed to follow. So I'm expecting them to deliver, and we haven't seen that yet since 2014. And as far as I'm concerned, there's way too much nepotism and family first violations in this region and this local, because what they do is they create these little locals and they only serve family. The region will give them money, and that's why some of these people in our communities are trying to create other locals, so this way they could be a part of that industry's money.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. Everybody's running, and they all want to do the same thing that everybody else is doing, but I'm sorry, but that's not going to work. And I honestly believe with the election coming in, this whole entire region, the whole entire province needs to be revamped. And I do believe that she said she wanted new structure and governance. Well, one of the things that they should do is revise the whole province, fix it up where we have 8 regions instead of 6. Put a region in Fort McMurray. So this way we have more control. And Audrey should be attending these regional meetings when it comes to industry, sitting with us and finding out exactly and saying, well, this is what our region has. Educate the locals and deliver the services that you're supposed to. And as a president, please serve us, because that's what your job is.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever thought, like, I know that all these locals and regions, they are actually part of this Alberta Societies Act. Is there a mechanism through there that you can maybe file a complaint through the Societies Act and have them look into it at all?
Well, I think I filed complaints from Societies Act to human rights violations to, I've even written to Ottawa. I've even written to Trudeau. So I'm hoping that I've even talked to I've talked to Revenue Canada. I've talked to even chiefs of Treaty 6 and 7 in regards to First Nations sitting on our region and our locals. That's illegal. That's a no. We can't do that. So that was one thing that I had cleared up. No First Nation can sit on our Métis Association as a collective, vote or sit on boards or committees. That's illegal. That's criminal conduct. And I want to make that very clear. There's no such thing as dual status either.
No, there's not. Okay, so who is in charge? See, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding why this region or any of these regions are allowed to just run rampant and do whatever they want, if that is the case. Why is there nobody checking who is on these boards and checking credentials and checking identity? If you have rules in place, there should be somebody there to check these rules and make sure that things are going well, especially if you have money moving around. How do these boards get set up, and how do these people get involved if there's nobody like checking or there's no checks and balances in the system?
Well, that's the same question that I've had since 2014, since I protested. We had issues here internally. The president has had human rights violations against her from other people, and she paid them off with lump sums, from what I'm told. And she can violate my human rights, but if it's one of her relatives, she'll pay them off. But she won't do that for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Nepotism is so great in Region 1. It's like a disease.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you said you've written to people and things like that. So what do you think, I guess, what's your next step? Is your next step to try to go to the media more and try to get this story to the public more? Or what is your next step?
My next step is I'm going to do a surprise rally and protest in the Region 1 office. I'm not going to state the date. I'm actually collecting No, I'm not. It's going to be a surprise. And I'm going to have media there as well. And what I'm going to do is right now I'm collecting Métis that want to be a part of this protest and rally.
Okay.
And then when we go in, we're going in as a group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have media. And the same thing that I'm telling you is, and I'm not going to, like I said, we want to be heard. We want the financials brought to Lac La Biche. We want to see the books. And as a member of a good standing, that is our right to see that in 58.2 of the bylaws. If we request to look at the books, we're entitled to see the books. And why are the books held in Fort McMurray?
Yeah. Yeah, no, these are all good, definitely good points. And I would, when you do have a date, I would love to if you let me know privately so that I can maybe.
Oh, I'm gonna definitely. I'll let you know a couple of days in advance, and you come down and protest with us. That'd be great. Well, this is the thing. I want elders there. I want youth there. I want collectives there to show that this is a bigger issue. It's not just something that they can sweep under the rug.
Yes.
This has been going on for years.
Yeah.
Like I ask elders, when was the last time we had a good president? And you know what they say? Who was before Bill looted? That was their response.
Yeah, so it's been a while then.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Nothing has been served in Lac La Biche for years. They serve themselves and fill their purse and for their family, but they neglect us. And this is what everybody should be looking at. They use us for collectives to get money. So why is it that the collectives cannot be served what their rights are based on, I guess you could say the bylaws, the constitution, but yet there's nothing. And we find out some members go to these regional meetings, they get paid more than others
Yeah.
because they're cousins.
Yeah.
It's that cousin policy that we need to get rid of. And you know what? This is the same thing that all Aboriginals deal with. It's all about family, who's leader, who's family, and who has control. And then the frontline grassroots Métis are neglected. We're neglected, and I'm proof of that, and that's why they fight me. They're more concerned about my Facebook posts. They're more concerned about my voice. They're more concerned about what I have to say, but yet they deny me goods and services and human rights, and on the based on my constitutional rights of in the charter. So I do have issues, and I have valid concerns.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, like I said before, I've heard these kinds of comments in other regions as well. So it's not a unfamiliar, thing. So I guess you're going to protest. Is there, with the elections coming up now? I'm not sure. Is that for all regions? Is every position up for election? Is that
All region, all for all for the entire
okay?
province, I guess, for all 6 regions, and we're entitled to vote. So I'm hoping that this year the elections are ran a little bit better, and ballot boxes don't go missing in Fort McMurray, and stuff in the seals aren't broken, and Buffalo Lake don't have First Nations voting. Basically, because we've had issues. There's been issue after issue in our Region 1. So I'm basically. I'm only a voice, and
Yeah.
I'm probably the loudest voice in Lac La Biche because everybody seems to not really care. Because this is what I was told by one lady. She goes, "Why waste your time, Corianne? It's the same type of leaders doing the same thing. And you know what? Why?" She said, "I give up." She said, "I went First Nation. Why?" She said, "There's no sense in being Métis." She said, "Because we don't get served."
Yeah.
And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that they use us for this money, but yet we don't see it. I've applied so many times for to finish my degree in education, and I struggle and I work. But the thing is, I should be entitled to go to the office, fill out an application, and see if I qualify.
Yes.
But you know what? But it doesn't work that way. If the president don't like you and you're vocal, your application's gone in the garbage. Goodbye. And she will not even look at you at meetings. She'll give you stink eyes. Yeah, her behaviors are not professional. You know what? I have, to be honest with you, I have no respect for president and what she's been doing to our region. I have no respect for her at all.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't serve the collectives. And I can't wait for elections. And I'm hoping that I can get in there and change some things, and hopefully teach people how collectives should be served.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you optimistic that could be a real possibility, or the change could happen in the next election there?
Well, I'm optimistic, but there's lots of cousins. There's lots of cousins that pretty much that control the votes around here.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that the bigger collective can see what I'm doing, and then I'm able to not just serve the cousins, but serve the whole of 2,500.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from. I'm talking from a collective perspective. If you cannot serve 2,500 of us, what's your purpose of being in that position and warming up that seat?
Yeah, exactly.
I do believe if you're going to serve anybody, it should be human rights first. Human rights is a big thing, and that's something that's not served in the Métis Nation. Sure, bylaws and the Section 35 and all these Canadian chartered rights that protect us.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, and we don't even have a judiciary council, where is our justice system? Where is our protection? How are we legally protected if we're being violated by our own leaders?
Exactly. And that's, I think that's my real my bigger concern is like there's just seems to be no mechanism to fix this either. It's a promise that they're going to revamp the entire structure, but something like that's a huge move for the entire M&A to be restructured. That's not going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. So then what do you do in the meantime, right? And that's where my concern is okay, but people have to live until then, until there's this massive, huge, big change. So what do people do?
Well, let me put it this way. I've been waiting since 2000 for funding. And the good thing is I was able to pay for my social work diploma myself, my rehabilitation program practitioner diploma myself, my early childhood development diploma myself, and my bachelor degree, and I only have one more year to go. So obviously there's Métis that can sustain themselves without going to the Métis region and saying here. And the reason why we have to do that is because we know that we can't depend on our own regional to help us. We already know that. Isn't that sad?
It is pretty sad. And I think just the stories of people being, elders and everybody being kicked out of the office or police called.
And you know what the worst part is? The worst part is okay. I have not been served I have not been served at all. Like I said, and because I'm very vocal, they've harassed me. I've had presidents' children message me on Facebook where I've actually have police reports opened since last June, and they do have copies. And every time I filed a human rights complaint and it was valid, I gave the police a copy. So I kind of knew this was going to. Because of the fact that I'm vocal, I kind of knew that I had to protect myself. So I made a paper trail. So just in case they decided to bring lawyers like they did, but see, in 2017, I filed a human rights complaint, and the file is still open in September, and it's good till 2018 September. So I have a year.
Yeah.
So basically, within that year, if they don't serve me, the Human Rights Commission is going to go after her and say, well, why didn't you serve?
Yeah.
Why haven't you done your job? Why haven't you, done, basically these things? So I made sure there's a paper trail to protect my rights, and because of the fact that I am vocal, because of the fact that I'm speaking up and speaking out about the human rights violations in Métis Region 1. And I wanted to prove that it is happening based on a collective perspective. We're frontline grassroots Métis, and we don't get nothing from this region other than defamation of character, violations of human rights, violations to the bylaws. And really, what's your purpose if you're going to just sit there and discriminate with intent to discriminate based on the fact that you're supposed to legally represent me and protect me, but yet you'll violate my rights? I don't believe in this leadership at all. I don't believe in it at all. And it's not working for us. We need change, and we need change now. And another thing I want Audrey to do is run the names before elections, because nowadays there's a lot of people that are choosing First Nation to go back to being First Nation, and sometimes their names don't get cleared off the list until like later. And I think that's something that should happen every time there's election, that Audrey sends these names, because the last time we had election, there was how many people that were deleted off the list before, and it went from 3,260 to 1,800. Now we're at 2,500. And I'm wondering, were some of these people First Nations before? Yeah. Why their names were, there's issues there. And I want to know this. I want to know how many are in these how many First Nations are in these locals and on these collectives. And I'd like to know why. And I'd like Audrey to investigate that as well.
Yeah. Well, it certainly sounds like a lot. We're getting close to time, but I want to say I really appreciate you coming on, and definitely keep us in mind if you're going to protest. We'd like to come up, and I'd like to get some sound, some audio, and just be up there for that. So
Well, I'll give you 2 days in advance, but it's going to be surprise. It's
For
going
sure.
to be a rally and a protest, and they're not even going to know when we're going to do it, because anytime I post something, they lock the office when Corianne's doing something, or they're not in the office.
Yeah,
I know
exactly.
quite a few times they're never there. So
Yeah,
what are they using? They get paid to work there, but they're not there.
Yeah, exactly. So
they're all in Fort McMurray, building another municipality for themselves.
Wow.
Cousin policy again.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you talking, and I think it's very eye-opening. And hopefully we can. I really hope that there is some change for you coming down the road, whether it's through elections or somebody actually enforcing a bylaw. But we'll definitely keep in touch, and maybe have you on again.
Well, regardless if I get in or not, all I gotta say is the next president or whatever is gonna have to deal with me, and I'm always gonna be there. I'm always gonna be a thorn in their thigh, wanting accountability and transparency, because we're tired of the old leadership, and nepotism's gotta go. You gotta serve the collectives, serve the Métis their constitutional rights, and serve them their human rights before you violate them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on.
Métis deserve better.
Absolutely, they do, for sure. So, yes. All right. Well, thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
You bet.
Great.
All right, guys. Well, I really hope you guys enjoyed that conversation, and I hope you understand the frustration that she's feeling. And it kind of goes to a general feeling that I get from a lot of people about the lack of transparency and accountability within these organizations. And I think it's a real shame when they start to get lawyers involved and threatening people with lawsuits for defamation of character. I mean, if you're in a position of leadership and you refuse to answer questions, I think you shouldn't be in that position if you can't handle the fire. So it's too bad, and I really do hope that we stay on top of this story and we stay paying attention to this, and hopefully we can bring you a more positive update in the future. But I want to thank Corianne for being on the show, and I hope people get this out there and share it so that everybody can understand what they're going through up there, and that these stories don't stay hidden away, tucked away under the rug of any organization that's doing these things. So if you're having a similar issue, if you're having a similar problem in your area, in your neck of the woods, with your organization, whether it's Alberta or BC or Nova Scotia, I don't care where it is, send us an email at metipodcast@gmail.com. Give me a phone number or some way to contact you back, and we can discuss it. Maybe we can get you on the show and you can talk about your issues in your area. So this show is about getting people's voices heard as much as it is me and Jason being able to ramble on like a couple of crazy lunatics. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to check out more episodes like this, head back to our page, our Patreon page, and check that out. Or you can check out our Facebook, which has all of our episodes. You can go back and listen to past episodes there. So I really want to thank you guys for listening. Have a great week, and until then, the jig is up.
You are the spark that's starting a fire that will spread across this land. And it will be a fire that doesn't burn, but a fire that cleanses. A fire that ignites in our hearts and creates light. No more living in darkness. Our time now is